Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So what are we talking about today? Well, I got some stuff here. What do we got here, man? Look, got some cardamom. How about that? Oh, what is this? Ground cinnamon. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Ceylon cinnamon, two different types of cinnamon. What? Hold on, we got some Szechuan pepper, some cumin, and some coriander. Okay, I think you figured it out by now. We're talking about spicy fragrances today. Let me get all that out of here. Yeah, but we're talking about spicy fragrances today, man. We're in the time of year where I think spicy fragrances are probably enjoyed the most, but obviously spice can honestly be used all year round. It just depends on how it's used and what type of usage it has. But yeah, that's gonna be the focus of today's video. And I got a top 10 ranked list here. Top 10 spicy fragrances in my cabinet. I'm gonna be honest, it was a little bit hard to put this list together. I was pulling out the fragrances and I ended up having about 20 out, and I'm like, okay, this is obviously way too much. I gotta narrow it down. And there were others I intentionally left off. So I've got quite a few good spicy fragrances in my cabinet. So before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like the content, and remember, hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, so kicking it off at the 10th spot from the House of Dior, we've got Sauvage Elixir. Dior Sauvage Elixir. So Sauvage in general has a spicy nature to it. This is obviously the spiciest iteration of all of the newer Sauvage fragrances. This one features a lot of spice. It opens up with a lot of nutmeg. You got cinnamon, you got coumarin, you've got cardamom in this. It's a very, very spicy fragrance. The reason it made the list is because it features spice pretty much throughout the entire life of the fragrance. You do have other elements like lavender, but it is primarily spice from start to finish. So I wanted to put it on the list because of that. But ultimately, the reason it's at the 10th spot is because compared to what else I have on the list, I do think there is a little bit of a quality difference between the others that are higher up on the list and this one. It's not to say that this is low quality, but it definitely does not hold up against some of the others I have on this list. So that's why it's in the 10th spot. But it's a spicy fragrance. It's a powerful fragrance, quite popular as well. So once again, from the House of Dior, this is Sauvage Elixir coming in at the 10th spot. All right, so coming in at the 9th spot, we've got one from Viktor & Rolf, and it's Spicebomb Extreme. Viktor & Rolf's Spicebomb Extreme. I do have to say I have smelled the new infrared eau de parfum. I think that is much better than the original infrared, and I do actually want to add that one to my collection. I just don't have it yet. And I'd probably have that one in this spot if I did, just because it's a newer fragrance. But ultimately, can't deny this one here. Lots of spice in this as well, obviously, as the name implies. There's also a lot of vanilla in this one, but you kind of got a blend of spices, cinnamon, pepper. I think there's pimento in this too. So it's a spicy fragrance. Again, it's in the 9th spot, primarily because I think it just doesn't quite have the quality that some of the fragrances higher up on the list has. Or, in general, maybe they just offer something that's a little bit more interesting. And this one won out over Sauvage Elixir because I do like it a little bit better at this point. At one point, I would say Sauvage Elixir would have been higher, but Sauvage Elixir has fallen down on the list for me, so this one got just above it. But I do still enjoy this one. I've heard rumblings about reformulations. I don't know if that's true. I haven't experienced it for myself, and I guess I got a bottle that just missed out on that. But either way, coming in at the 9th spot, from the House of Viktor & Rolf, this is Spicebomb Extreme. All right, guys, at the 8th spot from the House of Xerjoff, we have got Alexandria II. Xerjoff's Alexandria II. So the reason this is number 1 at the 8th spot is because although it does have some beautiful spices in it, the fragrance ultimately dries down to more of a woody fragrance. The spice profile in this is a feature at a point in the fragrance, but it's not throughout the entire fragrance, so It gets a little bit lower because of that. Also, there's not as much spices featured in this fragrance. It's primarily cinnamon. That's kind of the main spice you're gonna get from this, but it's just done so well that, you know, it made the list ultimately. And also, the fragrance in general is such a high quality fragrance and everything you get from it. I think the spicy element, while it may not be the main feature of the fragrance, it just adds to the overall beauty that this composition is. And that's why it's ultimately in the A spot, but also made the list. So once again, from the House of Xerjoff, this is Alexandria II. All right, guys, coming in at the 7th spot from the House of Tom Ford, we've got Oud Wood. Tom Ford's Oud Wood. So this one, I think, definitely features spices throughout the entire life of the fragrance, at least to some degree. It's also obviously very woody, does have an ambery-like sweetness to it. You do get a nice blend of spices with this fragrance. You got cardamom in here, you got some pepper as well, and also just kind of a spice blend, so to speak. But yeah, very nice spicy fragrance. Obviously, probably the most popular Tom Ford fragrance out there. Fascinating scent DNA, very sexy, very wearable type of oud, so to speak. And you know, I think this fragrance is ultimately always going to be one that's going to be a top-notch fragrance for a lot of people. Very important fragrance to me, and definitely features spices in a great way, and I think it deserves being on a top 10 spicy list. So once again, from the House of Tom Ford, this is Oud Wood. All right, coming in at the 6th spot from the House of Issey Miyake, we have got L'Odyssée pour Homme Noir Ambre. Issey Miyake's L'Odyssée pour Homme Noir Ambre. It's such a long name and I'm tongue twisted. But yes, this is a masterful, spicy, ambery fragrance. You got a lot of spice going on in here. Got some saffron, which is lending to the leathery nature of this fragrance as well. You also got some cinnamon, some coriander, just a masterful blend of spices mixing with a very nice ambery base. I also give this one higher nods for just being a very well done, interesting fragrance from a house that, you know, honestly is not as known for its cooler weather fragrances outside of the community, but boy, do they make some good stuff. It's a shame it's not easier to get stuff like this more regularly. Hey, if you get one, you know you got a good one, and this one is definitely a great one. I remember when it kind of became widely available, so to speak, in the community, and boy, it was hyped to death, and those of us who got their hands on one, I think we feel like the hype was well warranted. And this one definitely, I think, deserves a spot on a top 10 spicy list. Once again, from the House of Issey Miyake, we've got L'Odyssée pour Homme Noir Ambre. All right, in the 5th spot from the House of Roja Parfums, we have got Creation E. Roja Parfums Creation E, or Enigma if you are outside of the United States or just happen to have a bottle from outside of the United States. Ah, man, this is a masterful fragrance. Now, it is not overall thought of as simply a spicy fragrance, but I think what makes this one special is the way the spice blends with the other elements of the fragrance is what gives it its amazing scent profile. As you may know, it has that cola kind of vibe to it, and I think it's the blend of the florals and the spices in this fragrance that give it that vibe. Overall, it's mainly a tobacco, boozy fragrance that does have those spicy elements, but boy, is it smells so freaking good. And I think that is kind of why I gave this one a little bit of a higher ranking over some of the others. First of all, you do get the spices throughout the life of the fragrance, even though they're not solely the feature, but it's the way those spices blend with everything else that I think makes this one so masterful, because I don't think you get that cola-like vibe without the spices that are used in here, because there's not an official cola note, so to speak, and also cola, obviously on its own, is going to be an accord made up of a number of things. I absolutely love this fragrance, and I think I'm gonna make it my scent of the day today. But yes, this one's coming in at the 5th spot from the House of Roja Parfums. We have got Creation E. Parfum, by the way. I do think the Parfum is superior to the Parfum Cologne. All right, coming in at the 4th spot from the House of Parfums de Marly, we have got Herod. Parfums de Marly's Herod. So, you know, this one might make a lot of people's list. So this one, in general, probably not much of a surprise for me putting it on the list, but the fact of the matter is, it just smells so freaking good. Primarily, you're getting the spice from some cinnamon notes and just kind of an aroma chemical peppery note, I guess. It's listed as what, pepperwood, so whatever that is. But the fragrance just smells so freaking good. I have to have it on the list. It's primarily a tobacco fragrance with some vanillic kind of sweetness to it. It's very sexy, very appealing, kind of spicy tobacco fragrance, but it's just done so well, and I just love the way that cinnamon accord comes across. So this one I think is more of me putting it higher on the list because I like it so much, rather than it honestly being a higher quality than something like Creation E, because it's definitely not. But it's certainly not low quality either. But yeah, Parfums de Marly Harrod, I think always can kind of have its spot, at least in the topper echelons of spicy fragrances. So once again, from Parfums de Marly, this is Harrod. All right, on to the top three. Coming in at the third spot from the house of Nasomatto, this is Black Afgano. Nasomatto's Black Afgano. So this one obviously is more so known for its cannabis-like qualities, being inspired from a variety of hashish, but there are some beautiful spicy accords in this fragrance. You do not have an official note breakdown for this house in general, so I can't say what they're necessarily trying to emulate. And honestly, to me, it is a blend of spices. I can't pick out anything in particular, but man, I just love the way this comes across on the skin. Really throughout the entire life of the fragrance, the spiciness that it has just blends so well with the resins that this fragrance is trying to put forward. It's primarily a resinous fragrance, but you got this spice profile that goes along with it. I think that's kind of meant to give it a little bit of a smokiness vibe to it, but it comes across as spicy. Love the way this is compiled, such a high quality scent, and I really enjoy the fragrance wear. So I had to put it in the third spot for that reason. So once again, in the third spot from the house of Nasomatto, this is Black Afgano. All right guys, in the number 2 spot from the house of Amouage, we've got Journeyman. Amouage's Journeyman. So this one is, at least for the time being, if I'm talking spices or I'm talking tobacco, this one's gonna be in the upper echelons of the list, especially if I'm ranking it. Boy, do I love this stuff. Great spice profile with this. Also a nice tobacco fragrance, even though that's not the focus of today's video, but got some great spices with this, a nice peppery vibe, and it is spicy pretty much throughout the entire life of the fragrance. Does get a little bit sweeter as it dries down, but you still retain the spicy profile. I think the primary spices you're gonna get from this fragrance are gonna be Sichuan pepper and cardamom. There might be some other ones in there to give it a little bit more of a spicy profile, but just a beautiful, really enjoyable spicy fragrance that features tobacco as well, and some nice sweet accords to make it a little bit more balanced. The sweetness in this I don't think is that prevalent, but it is in there, especially when the fragrance sits for a while, because I didn't really get that much when I first got it, but I do get it now. But I love this fragrance. It's always going to be higher up on my list. So once again, from the house of Amouage, this is Journeyman. All right guys, and we have reached the number 1 spot coming from the house of the Harmonist. This is Hypnotizing Fire. Number 1 spicy fragrance, the Harmonist Hypnotizing Fire. And I have to be honest, this one was kind of a no-brainer. I kind of picked this one and then went from there, because the quality of this with the spice profile that it has, or even just the overall fragrance profile, pretty much beats out the other ones pretty easily in my mind, at least as far as being a spicy fragrance goes. Primarily you're getting some clove and pimento with this fragrance. It has this kind of fresh spicy pop to it, almost a smokiness, even though it's definitely not coming from the spices. In this fragrance there's some other notes kind of lending to that, but just the quality alone I think gives this one the nod over the other ones. Just sets them apart just a little bit, and I'm just blown away as to how good the quality of this fragrance comes across. It is expensive, but I think that expensive price tag that this one carries translate to what you get from the fragrance. Beautiful, spicy fragrance, supported with some slight gourmand notes and a good amount of vanilla as well. But yeah, this one, easy number 1 choice for me. So once again, at the number 1 spot from the house of the Harmonist, this is Hypnotizing Fire. All right guys, that is gonna do it for today's list. That was my top 10 spicy fragrances. Call it top 10 spicy fragrances for fall, winter of 2023. Let me know down in the comments below. Give me you guys your top 3 spicy fragrances that you have in your cabinet. Also, let me know what you think of the choices I put on today's list. I appreciate you guys watching all the way until the end. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.